Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to run through my complete landscape photography workflow from the shoot through to the edit and then on to the final print. So there's tons to go over. So hopefully there should be plenty of takeaways for you along the way. So let's get stuck into it. So I'm going to start with the shoot itself. If you've watched my last video from Snowdonia, you'll have seen that I scored some pretty epic conditions. You could say I got lucky, and it certainly felt that way, but on reflection, I did give myself the best possible chance of capturing some decent images. I also made a couple of mistakes too, which we will definitely discuss in a minute. Firstly, it was a location that I've previously scouted, so I knew the photos that I wanted to get from that location, which I think is always a great starting point. Also, I've been keeping my eye on the weather for a couple of days, and the forecast looked favourable for little wind, blue skies over the sea, and this is particularly good for this location because the mountains meet the sea, if you like, and often the clouds will congregate over the mountain tops while there's blue skies over the ocean. The ocean here in this location is situated in a westerly direction, meaning the sun will be unobstructed through the sunset period. So all of the forecasts were looking favourable, which is definitely another reason I chose this location. I use the PhotoPills app to show me where the light may fall during the sunset period, which gave me an idea of what time of year would best suit the photos that I was looking to capture from this location. For this particular location, the contours of the land block the light falling on the mountains during different times of the year, so timing was essential for getting the light where I wanted it. Quite often I have a backup plan as well, just in case I can't get access to the location that I'm going to, or the weather takes a turn for the worse. On this occasion, my backup was to shoot the Barmouth estuary from the top of the hill on the left-hand side, or if that failed, a roadside location which I had shot before. I think it's always great to have a backup if you're travelling a long distance to a location. Another valid point to make here is arrive early. The idea here was to shoot the sunset, but I actually arrived at 1 PM, which gave me the opportunity to enjoy the area, have some lunch and look for some photos before the golden hour kicked in. Always give yourself an extra hour more than you think you need. I think it makes the whole process so much more enjoyable, and if we're running around, racing around, trying to get an image, quite often we'll end up with failure. So with all this planning in mind, I did end up getting that little bit of luck that was needed to be able to capture some really nice reflections in the water of this wonderful mountain lake. So when the conditions turn on for us, it's really hard to not get carried away and end up running around snapping away like a madman. But I've found over the years, just focusing on a couple of compositions, you can really get the best from those photo opportunities. So I guess this was probably my one mistake from this shoot really. Bearing in mind the calm reflections and the golden light only lasted about 10 minutes, I managed to shoot 5 photos, which perhaps doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 5 different compositions to reconfigure, plus I had to swap lenses as well. So yeah, I guess I got a little bit carried away, which is why I made this vital mistake when shooting this panorama. Firstly, this scene works so well as a pano, but as you can see, I cut off the reflection of the boathouse with the stone wall, which for me just completely ruins the shot. I'm still kicking myself now. If I'd have moved just a couple of meters to the right, I could have got perfect separation. But hey ho, it's a lesson learned I guess, and we have to move on. Maybe next time. So we're going to run through a couple of edits of my favourite 2 photos from that shoot in a minute, and then make some prints. I can't wait to see these photos on some paper, so I'm super excited about that. So if you've been following along for the last month or so, you might have noticed a few improvements to my office space here. I've managed to get some photos and some frames on the wall behind me, which is great. But I think my wife's got her eye on that big one of church doors there. I think she might want that in the living room, so I might be losing that very shortly. I've also got some acoustic panels on the wall over here, which hopefully is going to stop or reduce the reverb in the room. I do plan to do another big one on the ceiling as well, which will be out of the shot. but hopefully, yeah, that will take some of the echo out of the room. I've also got a brand new desk here, which is going to be mainly for presenting these videos and displaying my prints. I'm going to get a camera maybe up onto the top of the ceiling there. So I've got a top-down view, so I can view my prints from a top-down perspective with some nice window light coming in. These desks are absolutely fantastic, by the way. And that brings us on to the sponsor of today's video, which is flexispot. Flexispot specialise in quality office furniture and accessories, perfect for anyone who spends long hours working at a computer. This is flexispot's premium series height adjustable desk E7, which is an adjustable range of between 58 and 123 centimeters. Its powerful but quiet dual motors are able to cope with even the heaviest of setups, as they can carry a whopping 125 kilograms. The E7 model is customizable via flexispot's website. Simply choose the stand and tabletop colors, then choose your table width to suit your requirements. I've chosen the 120 to 60 centimeter option in all black, as this matches my older desk perfectly. The touchpad is mounted just below the desk and gives you a simple up and down option, along with custom heights which you can program to the other 4 buttons. It also has a child safety button which will lock the desk to keep your little ones safe. The desk is really easy to set up with easy to follow instructions and plug and play electrics. The whole build took me less than 20 minutes from unboxing to having it up and running and ready to use. So if you're looking for a great height adjustable desk, I can highly recommend flexispot. Check out the link in the description to learn more. So let's get into the editing now, and then we'll make some prints. So let's start off and edit the boathouse reflection shot first. Probably my favourite shot of the whole shoot, I think. Now, what I always do before I get started is convert my RAW file to a DNG file using DxO's Pure RAW 2. So if you haven't tried that out, I definitely recommend it. It really does clean up any noise and adds a lot more clarity and detail to your RAW files. It also allows Lightroom to process your RAW files a lot better, I've found, especially using Fuji files, but I've also heard that it's great for Sony and Nikon files too, so it's well worth checking it out, DxO Pure RAW 2. There's a link in the description if you want to check that out. It's super easy to use. You just go up to File, Plugin, Extras and Process with Pure RAW 2, once you've installed the plugin obviously. You do get a 30-day free trial with no credit card, so it's well worth just going to check it out. Highly recommend it. I always uncheck the global lens sharpening. I find I prefer to do my sharpening myself. I want to be in total control of that. So I uncheck that. Everything else I check and click Deep Prime and then click Process, and it will automatically take a look at what camera you're using, what lens you're using, and make the automatic corrections to suit your particular equipment. I've already done this, so I'll jump over to my Deep Prime conversion, which is right next to us here. Now, as you can see, all of my images are color coded here. Generally, I'll have my green images, which will be my raw image of my DxO Pure RAW file in green. Then when it's edited, it'll be in yellow. And then when I've taken it into Photoshop and brought it back from Photoshop into Lightroom, it'll be red. And then blue will be my print ready file. So yeah, I like to color code everything. I'm a little bit OCD. But I think it keeps everything nice. I know where everything is and I know exactly what's going on. So with the boathouse shot, I don't think there's a huge amount of editing that needs doing to this file. So I'm just going to run a few basic raw conversion techniques really. So just boost the contrast a little bit. +5 looks great. I'm going to increase the highlights a little bit here just to bring out the highlights in the image, make those details pop a little bit more, probably around about +16. And increase my shadows as well, just to lighten this up a little bit. +43, that looks good. And boost my saturation by +9. What I might do is just adjust my crop a little bit, just to straighten up the water. Probably something like that. And all is good, and I feel this image is ready for the web. But what I do tend to do, more often than not, is just check to make sure my sharpener is turned off. when you do a DxO conversion, it automatically turns the sharpening off. So generally now I'll open this up in Photoshop and run a few minor tweaks to the edit. So if I come up to edit in and open in Photoshop, Photoshop will load up. So here we have the image in Photoshop. Now before I do any sharpening, generally I take a look around the image to see if I need to do any retouching work. And there isn't a huge amount that I really need to do with this image, but there was one thing that just like caught my eye, and that's this little post just here. I think there's a walking track up here to the left, and that's just a marker to tell people where to walk. And it just catches my eye a little bit, so I remove that with, I think, the spot healing tool. Just literally drag over that and get rid of it, and also do the same in the reflection. Just get rid of it there as well. I think that is fine. It just caught my eye a little bit, so I got rid of that. And really, there isn't anything else I think I need to do apart from sharpen this image. So let's go up to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask. And for these files, which come from the Fuji X-H2, which is a 40 megapixel image, I find that 181 is about the sweet spot for the majority of my images. When I was shooting with a 26 megapixel X-T3, it was nearer 140 I found to be the sweet spot. So yeah, this has changed a little bit. I think the more resolution you have, the more sharpening you need to do. So for example, if you are sharpening an image for Instagram at 1080 pixels wide, you might only want to apply about 30% sharpening. So yeah, it's going to vary depending on the size of your image. So as a default, it's about 181 I found to work well. So click OK. And then when I've finished sharpening, I'll just click on save, and that will take that file back into Lightroom. And then we will see it here, which I've already done it. So this is my red file. And that's it. We have it here, the finished file. So let's take a look at the other one very, very quickly, and this needed quite a bit more editing doing to it just to enhance and bring out the details a little bit. So I've done my DxO Pure Raw 2 conversion on this, and this is the raw file. So I'm going to do a little bit more to this image because it just needs, yeah, like I mentioned, just needs enhancing a little bit, and there's a lot of dark shadows here, but I was protecting the highlights in these hills here because they were so bright. And I didn't want to do a multiple exposure, but it's okay. It's okay. We've got all of the data if you look at the histogram, so that's absolutely fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do a few things to this using masks. So I'm going to do some global adjustments and some local adjustments. So first up, I'm going to put in a sky mask to this image because I know I'm going to overall brighten the whole of the image. So I want to darken my sky down just a little bit. So if I click on the mask and click Detect Sky, it's going to make a mask just over the sky like this, which is perfect. So everything that's in red will be affected by my adjustments now. So if I press O on the keyboard, that gets rid of my mask. So it's just showing me where the mask is. Now let's make some exposure adjustments here. So I'm actually going to reduce the exposure here by about, yeah, minus 44 is good. Add some contrast. Something like that, just to bring out some of these tones. Highlight wise, yes, I'm going to increase the highlights. Again, this is helping with the contrast. I'm going to reduce the shadows a little bit as well, and the blacks a little bit, somewhere around about there. Looks good to me. That looks great as a starting point. We might come back to that again in a minute. So let's just go back to our control panel there. Okay, so I think what we need to do is enhance the mountain here. So I'm going to do that with the brush tool. So I'm going to come up to my masks again, click on add a new mask, and this time I'm going to click brush, and that's going to give us our brush tool. And I'm going to press O on my keyboard so I can see where I'm painting. And I'm just going to roughly paint over the mountains here and the areas that I want to enhance. Now what I want to try and do is bring out some of the contrast in the hillside here to accentuate the light falling on it. We can see the lights falling on it, but it's just a little bit flat. So I just want to accentuate that a little bit. So I'm going to boost the exposure ever so slightly, just a little bit. Now add in some contrast, +9 looks good. boost those whites up a bit. See, that's really lifting that area, isn't it? So probably around about, I don't know, maybe 18 or so, something like that. And then bring the blacks down just a slightly little bit there. That looks good. I think with it, I want to warm this area up a little bit. So I'm going to increase my temperature just to warm it up, to give it that glow. And really boost the saturation in this quite a bit. So we're going to probably bring the saturation all the way up to around about 45, something like that. Yeah, that looks great. And to add in a little bit more contrast as well, I'm going to use the texture slider just to make those details pop a little bit more. So that's cool. I think that looks great. So I'm going to do a few global adjustments now, just to, you know, mess around with it a little bit more. I want to warm the whole image up, so I'm just going to increase the temperature, probably somewhere around about, yeah, there looks good, 4755, I like that. Tint's good as it is, I think. Just boost the overall exposure ever so slightly. That looks great. Yeah, and overall I think contrast just needs to be boosted again a little bit more as well. That's great. Perhaps a little bit too much. Yeah, I think maybe there, that's great. It's quite dark where the island is, so I'm going to increase my shadows quite a bit, maybe to, yeah, plus 25. That's allow us to see into that area a little bit more there. But I want to retain some pure black in the image as well, so I'm just going to reduce my black a little bit there. I think that looks absolutely fabulous. So this will be my finished edit for YouTube videos, Instagram, my website. But if I want to make a print, I'll need to do some further edits to it. So you can see just next to this here, the blue file is my print file. And as you can see, that looks quite a bit different than the other one. And this is because we're putting it on paper. It's a lot different, you know, when you're looking at something on a screen, it's backlit. When it's on paper, it's quite a bit different. So quite often I'll increase my exposure. In this image, I increase the shadows a little bit because I wanted to bring out some of the details here. I've also increased my saturation too. Quite often I'll introduce a little bit more contrast, but I've had to be really careful in this particular shot because of the bright areas of yellow here on the top of the hills, and I didn't want to lose any detail there. That's exactly the same for the boathouse shot as well. This time I increased exposure by plus 69. I've added in some contrast on this image, plus 5, some saturation as well. And then again, my default sharpening, an extra 30% on the amount slider there. So that's ready to go to print as well. And then we'll see how these compare in the tests and then make the final prints. So when I'm making my prints, I tend to print from Lightroom and use Canon's Print Studio Pro plugin, as I find this setup is quick and easy and it gives me consistent results every time, and that's really important. I have my print profiles loaded up for the paper types that I use. These ICC profiles tell the printer the correct print settings for the particular paper type. And you can also have your own custom profiles made for free from companies such as PhotoSpeed. My favourite paper is PhotoSpeed's Platinum Etching 285, which is this here. And this is what I'm going to be printing on today on A3. Now, I always do a small test print when I'm printing an image for the first time. And here's the 2 tests that I've already done. Got that upside down, haven't I? Here's the 2 tests that I've already done. And yeah, as you can notice, they overlap a little bit, but that doesn't matter. And that's given me an idea of what these will look like when I print them large. Now, I did want to make a few tweaks, which is why it's always important to do these test shots, let the ink settle, and then you can take a proper look at them and look at the colors and see what needs to be altered if anything does. It's better to waste a piece of A4 paper like this than it is several pieces of A3 paper. So with the island shot here, I decided to brighten up the island just a touch and give it a little pop with a minor contrast and saturation boost. With the boathouse picture, I found it to have a little bit too much magenta in the middle, so I reduced the magenta in the HSL tab, and I also boosted the blue luminance, which increased the luminance of the slate roof and the boathouse because there was a lot of blue tones in that, so that just helped the boathouse pop out a little bit in the center of the image. So let's take a look at these 2 prints. I'm really happy with both of them, to be honest. I think they're great. I think I mentioned during the video, the colors were so vivid. It reminded me of shooting with Velvia slide film. I think I'll frame both of these photos. Maybe we can put them up behind me here when the big black and white image finds its way to the living room. If you would like to learn more photography techniques I use all of the time, please be sure to check out this video over here, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share it if you think others might do too. A big thanks to flexispot for sponsoring this week's video, and until next week guys, take care and I'll see you soon.